All right. These times are strange, it's quite surreal. It's never been like this. Remember in the good old days when we could hug and kiss. We'd pack the gyms and restaurants and move through public settings. We'd give high fives and drink at dives, hold hands and dance at weddings. Now the days are longer, yet they're darker in a way. We're pressing pause on normalcy, just going day by day. But we can still make jokes and art, garden, dance and sing, cook, read books, try on fun looks and learn about new things. We can talk with friends of ours and have a heart to heart, just so long as we'll stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you, 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical, so step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.
Hey, woo! Woo! Oh, that's fantastic. For those of you who don't know, that is Julia Mark, who does our 6 feet apart song. She's actually come live on our show. So exciting. Now, I'm going to welcome my co-producer, Regina, who's just arrived late as usual. God, can't trust people, can you?
Hello, sorry, I had my camera covered till I got my top on. Whew. All right, good to be here. Good to be here. Tonight's show is our, first of all, thank you, Julia. That was awesome. It was wonderful to hear that in person and see you in person. That was great. And we're going to be giving away a CD of Julia's in the not too distant future as well. This show is our end of the year celebration. We have all veteran seasoned 6 feet apart storytellers. We've got some special guests we're going to be bringing on. We're going to be giving away a lot of prizes. And we are also going to be talking about guilty pleasures, which I'm going to let my co-producer Claire take over about the guilty pleasures.
Yes,
Take it away, Claire.
We've all had like guilty secrets that we've been doing ever since March, when normally we'd be in normal things like normal clothes, and now we're having, you know, people have been doing really weird things. So we've asked all our storytellers tonight to tell us a guilty secret. So we'll be spilling the beans. If you've got a guilty secret, please put it into the live chat on YouTube, and we will be looking at them. For everybody in our audience, which I'm going to show in a minute, please put it in the Zoom chat, and then we'll be picking on a few people. So hopefully, but in the meantime, I want to welcome our audience. So hopefully we can see everyone. Yay! Hi, everyone.
Hey, how y'all?
Regina, over
Wonderful.
to you.
All right. So our first, back to me. This is live television, can you tell? Unrehearsed. It's kind of like an improv show, really. Our first storyteller, Sheila Arnold, she told a story on her Black Lives Matter show on July 5th about a dangerous encounter with between her son and the police, and it's a heart-wrenching story. I would recommend, if you hadn't heard it, please go back to the July 5th show and listen to it. It's really worth the listen. She also was the host for the MC for our show that was on October 8th, which was Stories in Black and White, another great show. And we are so excited that she brings her talent to our show. And her guilty pleasure, she said, is during the pandemic that she ordered Starbucks, Five Guys, Red Lobster, et cetera, KFC. And she ordered all those with Uber and Grubhub, and she'd never done that before, but she did it, and she's gained a little weight. She had to learn how to kind of detox from that and cook for herself again. But that was her guilty pleasure, is ordering, it sounds like, a lot of junk food delivered to her door. Guilty pleasure or heaven, you decide. But regardless, please welcome the wonderful Sheila Arnold.
Woo. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. And please understand that that little bit of weight that I gained is more than a little bit now. But when we get out of all this, it'll all go right back down, I think. Anyhow, so glad to be able to share this story with you. The story itself began in March. Let me make sure I have my date right. That's right, again in March. began on March 24th. That was just this year. It seems like it was 5 years ago. But it was when we were all on that lockdown, when people were dying. And I thought that one of the things that I could give and contribute would be to find a way where I could sit with people that needed to have somebody sit with them in the loss of a friend or a loss of a family member. I didn't think a lot of people had that right then. And so I, living on the East Coast, thought I will create a place where people can come and they can share the names of people and speak their names out loud. And then we can just have a moment and I'll sing a song or have a song sung or a poem, and it will be a memorial kind of time. And so I began this project. And on the first day where I actually had somebody else come in with me, because I just kind of started on my own and let people know. But on the first day that I had somebody come in, they came in, we were remembering somebody. And the next thing I knew, I was Zoom bombed. There was name after name after name after name that came up, and all these young men that were up there, and I didn't know what was going on, and all I saw was their names. This is before we knew what Zoom bombing was yet. We hadn't gotten to that part of our learning process, and all of a sudden these kids came on, and of course I had them unmuted quickly, and they were saying things, and I was like, what is this? And just so mortified, because it was supposed to be a special moment and ended up being a really hard moment. So I learned really quickly, like all of us have, haven't we? I learned how to make sure that things are muted correctly, that people couldn't share and stuff. And I learned how to be ready for a Zoom bomber at any time that I needed to be. And I didn't have to worry, because I didn't have another Zoom bomber until another special day. See, I was doing this every single day, and I was doing it at 2:29 p.m. every day for about a half hour. I chose 2:29 because the first death we had in the United States that we knew of at that time was February 29th from COVID. So that's what I was doing. I was planning that and getting a chance to be able to memorialize people. And then April 1st, April Fool's Day. April Fool's Day came. I went online and here it comes again. Just boom, 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 boom. Just kid after kid getting on there. And they had these names. And so I got kind of cool about it, because, I was like, okay, what's your name? And one kid said, my name is Nick Gurr. Yeah, you got it. I was not as quick on the uptake. And so I asked the next kid what his name was. And my name is Mo. My last name is Lester. Mo Lester. Yeah. I was really not catching on. This is when you know that you're old, when you just don't get it, And the next kid, his name was Mike. And I said, okay, Mike. He said, I have someone that died, and it's my sister, and her last name is my last name, Rochburns. I said, oh, he said, yeah. I said, oh, I'm so sorry, Mike Rochburns. Yeah, okay. That's what it was. And so here I was with these kids, and I was like, I've been so bamboozled. I was just so taken in by what they said. And all I could do was really laugh at myself, because I was like, oh, they got me. That was pretty good. I have to say, they got me. And then I got them off, and I went that night, and I said, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not going back anymore to do this with these kids are going to pop back on there. I don't want to deal with them. I don't want to be nice. I don't want to be loving. I'm trying to live up to the Christian standard that I live by. Love everybody. I was trying to make the exception for Zoom bombers, but it was required. And so here I went, and I got on the next day. Didn't want to do it, but I got on. And they came back. All these kids came back, and I kind of laughed it off, and I just started removing them. I found the power of remove, and I could just remove, and they never came back. It was lovely. So I was removing, and I was just about to remove a kid who called himself Jack. And so I said, and I'm removing you, Jack. And the next thing I know, this kid unmutes himself. He doesn't unmute himself. He puts himself in the chat. He says, Miss Sheila, please don't unmute me. I'm like, Miss Sheila? How did you even find out my name? Well, he found out my name because my name was Sheila Arnold. He went and searched me. He found my website and found that I was called Miss Sheila. And I was like, well, if I allow you to stay, you've got to act better than what you have been. Because he was one of those kids making up names and saying horrid things. He said, I really want to stay. Please don't. Please don't. So I let him stay. And I let him and a couple of other guys that he knew, and he asked if they could all stay, and they did. And I unmuted them, and they said, please go ahead and continue saying the names of the people that died. Okay. And so I did. I said their names out loud, the names of the people that I had on my list that day. I showed a video and I read a poem, and then I said goodbye. And before I could get off, Jackson said, so will you be here tomorrow? Yes. Same time. Same link? Same link. Okay, thanks, Miss Sheila. They all left. I was like, okay. And I came the next day. And I came the next day and I completely was not expecting it, but I came the next day and they all came back and they brought friends, including a girl. And I was like, okay. They all knew each other. I got that pretty quickly. They all went to school together. They had known each other, kind of grew up in the same neighborhood. They'd all hung out and they wanted to be around Miss Sheila. And I was like, all right. So that day I spoke the names of the people that I had gotten from various places, and I shared a story. Then I shared a song that was a video, and then I decided, well, I have these kids here, I might as well share a story. So I did. I shared a story about my sister when she died. The kids seemed to get that. And so they asked before they left, are you going to be here tomorrow? Yes. And so began the strangest friendship I probably will ever have. The Zoom bombers became my friends. And every day that I was on, they came on. Now, sometimes they missed a day because they had this practice or they had that. One time, Jackson came on. He was in the car with his mother. She was driving him to a ball field just so he could get out there and practice baseball for a little bit because he missed it so much. And when he got on, he said, hey, Mom, this is the woman, Miss Sheila, the one we've been talking to. I cannot even begin to imagine what these kids were saying to their parents about who I was and why they were talking and what their parents were saying about being online with a grown older woman. I had no idea, and I didn't want to know. But they came. They came every day. I told stories, we spoke names. Every now and then, one of them would do the poem, or they would be the ones to say the last word. They came every day. We began to talk about what it felt like to be at home and not at school, what it felt like to have your brother and sister at home from college, and your parents, what the scare was when one of the kids had a family member that was, had been around COVID and the whole family was quarantined even more. It was those kind of conversations I was blessed to have. Well, this went on for about a month and a couple of days. And all of a sudden, about a month and a couple of days in, I get Zoom bombed. But they're all on with me. And Jackson wrote me, he said, Miss Sheila, let me at them. Let me at them. I want to remove them. I'm going to tell them who they are. They're not supposed to come in here and act like this. I said, this is how you acted. We didn't act like this. We weren't like this. We weren't, not us. We were never like this. Yes, you were. You were just like this. No, we weren't. Well, I allowed Jackson to remove a bunch of children, told him not to cuss them out, which I had to tell him twice. And I was just about to get off. I said, thank you guys. It's time for me to go. And Jackson said, Miss Sheila, we'd like to tell you our real names. Up to that point, those were the fake names? I had no idea. And so each one of them told me what their real names were. And Jackson became Jack. And he was the one that was the loudest, the crudest, and the one that seemed to need it the most. And I began to have their names. I talked to them about why they chose the names they did. It was quite something. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with them. But when we had done this for about 2 months, I realized that it was time for me to go. It's time for me to go to another step. I was moving. And so I called us all together and I said that it was time to close down. They were disappointed, but I could tell they understood why. And we promised to stay in touch. And we have. I know it seems strange, but those Zoom bombing children still contact me, ask me how I'm doing. I find out about them. And after George Floyd was killed, they still had questions and thoughts. And they had an adult named Miss Sheila they could talk to about it. I've had a lot of strange things happen this year, 2020. I've had to rework my entire world around this thing called Zoom. I've had to take a back seat on traveling and even for a long time not even hug anybody around me. But the strangest of all has been finding friends through Zoom bombing. No one could have written that story for me. No one. Thank you. Now I'm in trouble with Claire and with Regina. I need you to open the curtain back up, Tech Guru. Because I'm in trouble with Claire and with Regina because I forgot to show what I'm supposed to give away. Thank you. Now that I'm in, kind of sort of out of trouble. But I am going to give to somebody who's in the drawing my first CD, Hands Wide Open, and you'll get it as a download card so you can put it wherever you want. And I'll be the one to remind everybody else to make sure you do that first, or Claire and Regina will send nasty notes to you. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Sheila. I was just about to do it myself. And that was such a great story. One of the best things in the pandemic is that I met you, which I never would have done because you're on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast. And I'd want to speak to you every day too. I feel quite jealous of the Zoom bombers. So now I want to pick on somebody I've also met just because of the pandemic. And I would say it's a guilty pleasure, but it's actually not a pleasure. It's my lovely friend, Jessica Robinson from Better Said Than Done. Hi, Jessica.
Hi. It's been as much of a pleasure to get to know me as it has been to get to know Sheila. I'm
You have made me laugh more than most people, I have to say.
That's what I get up in the morning for, Claire.
I know, for me. And who can blame you? So tell us your guilty pleasure then.
Well, I was gonna say that I've been eating and drinking too much, but I honestly don't really feel that guilty about that. So my guilty pleasure is that I read on the toilet. And I don't really even feel guilty about that, except that I've been doing a lot of reading lately. And yeah, most of the books I've been reading are from the public library. So, sorry, Fairfax.
Well, I'm hoping you're washing your hands.
I have been doing a lot of that too.
Well, one of my guilty pleasures has been being rude to you on Facebook until they disabled my account. I think it was you that actually made them disable my account.
I did. I showed them all your posts and I was like, do you see this? Do you see this?
Well, thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to ignore Jessica now and introduce our next storyteller. Now, this is another person that I've actually been delighted to meet because of the pandemic. He's a fellow Brit. He lives on the other side of the world. No, he doesn't actually. He lives on the other side of the country, feels like the other side of the world. He's currently in the middle of a big storm, and we're hoping that he will actually get to tell his story and not have his internet shut off. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I'm hoping that maybe at some point after the pandemic, we'll be able to meet for tea and biscuits at some point. We'll hope so.
Yes. Yeah. McVitie's digestive biscuits.
Chocolate digestive biscuits, please.
Well, we could do chocolate. I could bring hobnobs as well if you want.
Hobnobs would be great, Simon. Thank you. I love myself a hobnob. Now, Simon, I've met him because of all the shows we've been doing, and he came on our spooky Friday Fright Night show on October the 16th and told an excellent spooky story about a young woman with golden hair that catches the attention of an evil count. So if you want to hear that, you can go to it'll be on YouTube. You can see that Friday Fright Night, or go to our website. You can see it there. And that's sfapshows.com. So now Simon is an extremely talented storyteller. He tells mostly traditional tales, occasionally the odd person one, but really traditional. He's got podcasts, he's got Friday with Friends, he's got a YouTube channel, loads of CDs. He's going to be giving away one of his. So we'll see that in a minute. His guilty pandemic pleasure is that he's become a little bit square-eyed. He's watched the entire Star Wars movies, which I think deserves a medal, nearly all the 20-odd Marvel films, the Avatar, The Last Airbender TV show, sounds a bit rude to me. And then all the time he's eating Italian-made green and black chocolate. So it can be lovely to do that. So please welcome to our virtual stage, Simon Brooks.
So this is the CD that I'm giving, that you're auctioning. It's just recently come out. It's gatefold, and it's got a nice blue thingy on it, and the artwork is phenomenal, and the stories are quite good as well. Anyway, the story I'm going to tell you today is a story from Ireland, and it's a story that I remember from my childhood growing up. And it is about this young man called David and his wife Deirdre. And David and Deirdre lived in a tiny little house all by themselves, except for their parents, David's parents. Now, David's ma and da, they weren't able to make a living like David was. David was a woodcutter. He'd go out into the dark, dark woods, gather wood, bring it back into the town and sell it. And Deirdre was a seamstress, so she did a lot of work that way. But David's ma, she would sit on the porch and she would watch the sunset and watch the colors change in the clouds. But she couldn't do that anymore because she had lost her eyesight. And David's pa, his hands had arthritis, so he could no longer hold the tools with which he plied his trade. So they were not a rich family at all. One day, David was out in the woods gathering timber. It was a day after a storm, lots of fallen wood, which made his job a lot easier to do, comparatively, and a little bit quicker. Now, he stopped for lunch and he sat down on this massive fallen log and he took this sandwich that his wife had made him. And he got this bottle of something to drink and he was about to take a bite out of the sandwich when something caught his eye. He turned and looked and he thought, well, maybe it was a fox or a rabbit underneath the bush. But as he quietly waited, he saw it wasn't a fox and it wasn't a rabbit. It was one of the wee folk. It was one of the fae. A gentleman with a long beard and tattered clothes ran straight from underneath the brush and out into the clearing. David's jaw fell open. He had never seen one of the wee folk before. And just as he was starting to recover his senses, this hawk flew down from the sky, diving at the little man. Well, David knew that the hawk would carry this fae off and would be gone. So David grabbed his axe and ran, shouting and screaming, waving the axe in the sky, and the bird took off, alarmed at David's presence. David stopped to watch the bird fly off, and then he turned to look to see if he could still see the wee man, and the wee man was still running. He leapt over the stream that was on the edge of the clearing and landed on this log on the other side. But the log was rotten. His foot went straight through, and the wee gent was trying to pull his leg out, but the log had him trapped tightly, and the bird started to fly down again. And it was getting closer and closer. David knew that there was no way that the old man was going to escape. And so he too ran across the clearing, leapt over the stream, waving the axe at the bird, and the bird screamed and flew away in anger. And David looked at the wee gent, still pulling at his leg in the log. Well, are you going to just keep looking at me all day? You're going to help me out now? Well, I'll help you out. And he took the axe, he dropped it into the crack and twisted the axe, which made the crack widen, and the old wee man was able to take his foot out. David kept staring at him. What are you looking at? I was having some lunch and I wondered if you'd like to join me. Ah, that'll be a pleasure. And so the two of them made their way back over to the log. And they sat down together. David took the sandwich and tore it in half and gave one half to the little gent, and he had the other half for himself. And then he took the bottle and opened that up and took a cup that was in his bag, and half of the bottle gave the cup to the gent, and he drank from the bottle. But he kept looking at the wee gent. What's the matter with you? What you staring at me for? Have you never seen one of the wee folk before? No, I haven't. Well, stop staring. Well, do I get 3 wishes or anything? 3 wishes? You only got me foot out of that log. It's not like you saved me life or anything. Oh, I see the way of it, said David. Well, 1 wish would be good as any. Well, have you got anything to put it in? I suppose so. David looked through his pockets and he pulled out a tinderbox. He took out the flint and he took out the stone and he left the tinder in there, the kindling, and he handed it to the wee gentleman. And the wee gentleman said, that'll be fine now. And he reached into his pocket and he pulled out a wish. And he dropped it into the tinderbox. And there it was, like 1,000 stars shimmering, sewn together with gossamer thread from the moon. David had never seen anything so beautiful in his whole life. Now, don't be wishing for any gold or anything like that. There's no point. People find out about it, they'll come and steal it or worse. Use your noggin, use your head, and think of something good to wish for. Well, I will. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And David closed the box and put it in his pocket and turned to thank the man, but the gent had gone, vanished. Well, David was too excited to do any more work. He gathered his tools and he got all the lumber that he had onto the cart and then made his way back home. Deirdre, you won't believe it. I saw one of the wee folk. What you talking about? Oh, I saw one of the wee folk. Deirdre came out and looked at him. What's you talking about, David? Seeing one of the wee folk. What was in that bottle you took for lunch? Oh, nothing. Look. And he reached into his pocket and opened up the tin. And there it was, shimmering. 1,000 stars sewn together with a gossamer thread. And he told her the story. They went inside talking about this wish. And Deirdre, you know what we can wish for? Aye, that child that we've been wanting. Aye, she said. Wouldn't that be grand? What's all this about a wish? What are you talking about out there? David's ma came in, feeling her way around the furniture. You're talking about a wish. What kind of wish have you got? Well, David told her what had happened. Well, you can't wish for a child. Not with my eyesight gone. David, I can barely remember your face. I have to touch your face to try and remember it. Pray for my eyesight to get back. You're still young. You'll have a child soon enough. But what if we can't, said Deirdre. What's all this about a wish now? David's da came in. And again, David went through the story, telling him what had happened. No, your mother's right. You can't be wishing for a baby. You're young. You'll have a child soon enough. You got to wish for gold, because then a doctor can pay for your mother's eye. I mean, look at this place now. There's slats, there's gaps in the slats, there's slits off the roof. No. This baby, if you have a baby, it'll freeze to death the first year, the first winter. Pray for gold, get your eyesight back on your mother, and the baby will come in time. But what if the doctor can't heal me? What if I can't have a baby? And the conversation went on and on. David couldn't believe what he was hearing. They're just fighting and fighting. He closed the box and put it into his pocket and made his way outside. Now, the house was on the side of a hill, and he started to make his way up the hill to where a grove of trees were. And he lay down beneath them. And he looked at the sky. It was getting towards the end of the day, and the sun was starting to change the colors of the clouds as they moved by, the clouds that his mother once looked at. He watched them and thought about his mother not being able to see, about the truth that his father said, the cracks in the wall, the slates missing off the roof, the fact that the baby would probably freeze to death in the first winter. And he thought of Deirdre and how long they'd been trying to have a child. And then a bird cried out, and he watched this one cloud change shape. And he had an idea. He made his way back to the house, and they were still at it. Hey, gold! No, my eyesight. No, my baby. And David said, stop now. Be quiet. I have an idea, but you've got to be quiet. And he opened up the tin again. And his father, seeing it for the first time, gasped at the beauty of it. Those 1,000 stars sewn together with a gossamer thread. Deirdre smiled as they described to David's ma what it looked like. And then David spoke. Now, you got to be careful. You got to be quiet. Let me speak, okay? He closed his eyes and he said, I wish that my mother could see a healthy, happy baby crying in a crib of gold. And as he finished those words, the wish vanished. Over the next 9 months, Deirdre's belly grew large with child, and David's, Mars' eyesight came back. And when that baby appeared out of the womb and was given its first slap and began crying, a golden crib appeared at the foot of the bed. And so with a great imagination and with some well-chosen words, David made 3 wishes from one. The one wish. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey.
Brilliant.
Woo! Yay!
That's
Now I can see
brilliant.
again.
What a great story. Simon,
Great
thank
story.
you. Simon, that was a great story. I was wondering how he's going to pull that off. That was great. I just love it. It's the British accent too. It just, I
That's
love
the
it.
Irish ingenuity. That's what it is.
Yeah, right. You're much better. I could never even begin to pull that off. So guilty pleasures. I'm sure Claire's going to talk about hers. I'm going to talk a little bit about one of my guilty pleasures. And that is that we can't go to church, so we have to go to mass, like stream it, live stream. And I've gotten really, really, really comfortable at watching mass, like from the couch with a cup of coffee. And I always think my mom, who wouldn't let us eat any food like an hour before church, because we were gonna rot in hell if we did. And I'm like eating breakfast and drinking coffee while I'm live streaming. I don't know if I'm ever gonna be able to go back to mass because it's just so easy. And even they have drive-through confession now. The Catholics have drive-through confession. They've thought of everything. And I went last week, and I don't know. The priest looked at me like I was crazy because I offered to pay for the sins of the guy behind me. Like, I don't know, just throw in a couple extra Our Fathers, will you? And trying to pray it forward, people. Pray it forward. Be a good human. But that's my guilty pleasure is mass in my pajamas. Our next storyteller has been with us, gosh, I think 3 times. He was on our very first show, very first show on March 29th. He was also on our Mother's Day show. And if you didn't see the Mother's Day show, you need to go back, because at the end of the Mother's Day show, he cut his own hair. And the audience got to vote on what style, and I think they went with David Beckham. So you can decide if he, bend it like Beckham or cut it like Beckham. But live in person, you can see JP give himself a haircut. It was pretty epic. And also he was with us on the Story Slam True Grit, and his guilty pleasure, and I can relate to this so much, is that in the morning, he'll go out to the car, he'll say like he has to go somewhere, and then he'll go out and get the paper and have a cup of coffee, and he'll just sit in the car and listen to NPR while Zoom craziness is going on in his house. His wife is a teacher, he's got a son in high school, and I can relate. I've got 3 teenage sons who are going to remote school, and I've got a wife who's on the Zoom all the time, so I can totally relate to going out and just sitting in the car and having people assume that you're doing something really important. And you're saving your sanity. JP is going to show you what he's going to give away. I'm very excited about that. You are going to want to win this because he is a master craftsman. He has a building, a shed, a business out on Alameda Island, and he makes beautiful, beautiful things from wood. Everything you could imagine. So he tells stories wherever and whenever he can. You've seen him at a lot of different shows throughout the Bay Area, and we're so happy to have him back here with us. Totally rocking the jacket. JP, thank you.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. And I just want to point out how much I love Julia's voice at the beginning. Thank you so much for that. So at the very beginning of COVID, I just started making things. So this is kind of a fun little cheese board. I don't know if you can see, but it's all end grain white oak. And I've decided the person who wins my stuff, they get to pick which thing. So I'm going to show 5 things. Here's a cutting board. This is Purple Heart, Maple, and Sapele. Very thin, very light. There's one of white oak that was made from somebody's desk. These are all recycled, by the way. At the beginning of the pandemic, like everybody else, I was shut down, and I run the building. So there's 40 artists who make furniture and art. and they couldn't come into work, and I could because somebody had to get the mail. This is a fun bowl. It's square, but it's also a bowl. So somebody could win that. And for about 2 weeks, I was the only person coming in, and the phone also just didn't ring. And I was supposed to be building a vanity for somebody for their bathroom. And this is also a fun cheese board. It's all end grain, white oak, more recycled from somebody's desk. And so while this was happening, the phone didn't ring. And I don't look essential, but all of a sudden the government decided I was essential. And they put out this thing that if you make cabinetry for kitchens or baths, or if you make anything for a home that could help people work from home, then you were an essential worker. And when they put that out, this is the last piece. This is Western red cedar siding from somebody's house that I turned into a vase. So it's a little vase. So whoever wins gets to pick. So the phone starts ringing because all of a sudden I'm essential, and the calls are all exactly the same. The calls are a polite person asking if I can do work. And when I say yes, they say, well, I have kind of an odd request. I need a desk. That was every single call. I need a desk. I need a desk. Sometimes it was, I need a home office, but it always ended up with desk. And I would like the desk to be able to double as something. Could it also be a table that we can use for the holidays? Or could it also be a bed? Could we make a desk a bed? And this was over and over and over. And the people also, they acted like I should be grateful for their phone call. And the truth is, in the beginning, I was, because I didn't know what work I was going to be able to do. So I made 3 or 4 desks right off the bat. Simple. It's just 4 legs and a top, no drawers, something people could use. And I would go to deliver these. And in the beginning of this, it was weird to deliver something. The next phone calls I would get, well, after a month, they started to change. And instead of them being very polite, they almost sounded like they were asking for help. And the phone calls were more like, please, like, can you save me? This guy called and he said he had an emergency. He said, my kids are Zooming school from the kitchen table and I have to work on the kitchen counter. And here's a direct quote. I think they're starting to figure out I'm stupid. My kids are figuring out I'm stupid. The 9th grader is doing algebra. And I got to tell you, they changed algebra. It's not the same. I know it's not the same. I thought I was good at math. And the 6th grader is doing this thing on state capitals. And when I told her that Bismarck was definitely not the capital of a state, she just rolled her eyes at me. Can you please help me? So I made 2 desks for him that he put in the garage. He put his kids in the garage. And I just thought, what an asshole at first. Things got weirder from there. I got a cold call from a woman. This is someone I have never met. I have never met this person. They called me and she said, I will pay you more money if you will do my project first. If you will come and make the home office for me first, I will pay you more money. I want to turn my nursery into an office. I don't care where the baby sleeps anymore. And I said, oh, so you're going to be in the nursery? And she goes, no, that's where my husband's going to go. I cannot hear him tell one more stupid, corny joke over Zoom. I'm going to kill him. This was daily. I was getting the weirdest phone calls from people who would just start with their problem. But that's actually not the weird part. When you go to people's house during a pandemic, there is a whole progression of things that happen. In the beginning, I would go to deliver a desk, and when I showed up, people would be loaded in the car already. And they would say, the door's open. When you're done, text us and we'll come back. Because none of us wanted to be in the same room. Because in the beginning, you didn't know, could we be in the same room? social distancing was not this verb that we use all the time. But things changed very quickly after that. The next phase, I would go to somebody's house and they would stay in the house, but they would hide the kids. Like the kids were kept in some other room and everybody wore masks and they stayed away from me and they let me do what I had to do. And I would see a kid every now and then peek his head around a corner to see a stranger in the house. The next version of that was I would show up and here's a perfect example. I was delivering a pantry cabinet that I made to look like an Art Deco jukebox. It was a really cool and super functional thing for the kitchen. And the woman answered the door. She had on a really nice blouse and her hair was done perfect. And she had these earrings on that were like big girl office earrings. Like that's all, I don't know jewelry, but you saw her and you were like, she's an office manager. Like you knew immediately. But she had on sweatpants that were 3 sizes too big. And there was a mustard stain going down the left leg. And she looked at me like this was totally normal. You know, it's business up top and it's trailer park down below. And I saw this over and over. And I'd go to somebody's house and there was a guy in boxers and he walked by me like, this is how it is. And I'm a stranger. I don't know these people. Also, this weird thing happened with the mask. You know, we all were wearing masks in the beginning, but I'd go to somebody's house, they'd have me in and they weren't wearing masks. And I would say, hey, can you put on the mask? And they would go, oh, yeah. Hold on a second. And they would do this with their shirt. I saw 3 people with belly button rings. One was a dude and it was not attractive. I got to tell you how weird. I thought that was the end of the weirdness. No. When I go to somebody's house now to install something, they don't hide the kids. The kids come out. The kids come to wherever I'm working because they're bored of their parents and they want to see what I'm doing. Now, I have a 17-year-old at home. He's Zooming all the time. He stays in his room. He doesn't care whether I'm alive or dead most of the time. But what I forgot about was a 7-year-old. Do you know what a 7-year-old who's bored can do to you? I'm trying to work. And a 7-year-old is going, what's that? What's that tool? And I go, oh, it's a drill. And he goes, oh, does it go backwards? Yeah, it does. He goes, yeah, my dad has tools, but we're not allowed to touch them. Can I touch your tools? No. I got this. He goes, okay. I have a fish. Do you have a fish? No, I don't have a fish. Well, I wanted a hamster, but my sister has allergies. So I had to get a fish. Do you have allergies? No, I don't have allergies. Oh, do you have a hamster? And I'm waiting for a parent to come and take the 7-year-old in his pajamas away, and it never comes. Right now, when you're in somebody's house, if you're entertaining the 7-year-old, everybody's going to let you do it. I could be doing anything. I could be licking their 7-year-old on the forehead, and they would just go, yeah, he's busy. It's good. He's not bothering anybody. I am seeing this on a regular basis. The weirdness in the world, we're outside, you don't see it, but you go inside somebody's house, they're not wearing regular clothes anymore. The bar is so low. The only thing I don't see are single people, because single people don't call me to have me make a desk. They can Zoom from anywhere. Single people do call me though to talk. And it's always about work they think they're going to want to do to their apartment when COVID is over. And they want to send me a picture of the couch that they're thinking of ordering because they've been on House all day looking at stuff. And now they're like, okay, hey, maybe this guy can make me a coffee table to match this leather couch that's made in Portugal. And they're never going to order that couch. And I cannot get the single people off the phone. The single people, they don't know me and they tell me about their breakup. They tell me about the breakup right before COVID. And I am like, yeah, so the couch. And they're like, oh, no. And then they tell me about their succulent garden. And they tell me about their mother. And they tell me about their Uncle Bob, who once rowed across the English Channel. And they say, why do they call it the English Channel? Couldn't they call it the French Channel? I got to tell you, I am not essential. I am not essential and I don't want to be essential. Can this be over now, please? Thank you.
Wow, yay!
Terrific.
Wow.
Oh, that's so funny. Thank you, JP. Thank you. And we've had a lot of comments in the audience saying, please come and entertain my 7-year-old, but please don't lick my child. You're now going to be known as the child licker, which I don't think is a good thing. Thank you. So I'm going to tell you what my guilty pleasure is now over the pandemic. I've had a few, obviously, because it's pandemic. One of them obviously is not getting up or getting dressed and doing meetings in a dressing gown, but the thought of actually wearing a proper underwired bra, like a medieval torture instrument, is terrifying. So I don't ever want to go back to work. I'm going to hope, I mean, I'm quite glad that we're on a shelter in place order just come in, because it means I don't have to wear that horrible thing. But my proper guilty pleasure was, throughout the whole of the pandemic, I've been watching, various, obviously everything on Netflix and Amazon and blah, blah, blah. But the one I liked the most was Heartland. And that's like a Canadian horsey Gilmore Girls. It's really for young teenage kids, I suppose. There are 14 seasons. And in each season, there are approximately 18 episodes. So that's probably about 250 hours worth of horses and galloping, because I was a horseman when I was younger. It's been bloody marvelous. I've loved every minute. Thoroughly recommend it. I tuned out all the nonsense with the election and bonkers stuff that was going on in the world. I thought, oh, let's go sit down and watch Heartland. And I would go to a different time and place when people were actually nice to each other. So I thoroughly recommend doing that. So that was my guilty pleasure. So now the next storyteller I want to introduce is Kate Farrell. Kate was on she's been on our show twice. She was on our International Internet Story Slam special on May the 17th. So you should do that and that's way back, sorry, Kate, when internet was first invented, when people like Kate and we were around when it first was invented, which is kind of scary. She then also, we did a show with her called Stories in Black and White, which, as we said, Sheila was the MC for, which is a really excellent way, because her and her friend Cheryl workshop their stories about growing up in the South, and it's really worth it. Definitely go and do that. Kate is also one of our super fans, so we love her a lot. Now, Kate, her guilty pleasure is reading British Regency romances, which I have to say is not guilty at all, because why wouldn't you want to read something British, darling? It's wonderful. So she started with Georgette Hare, which I remember reading when I was young. She went through all the Napoleonic Wars, the treacherous society seizing, smuggling in Dorset, hunts in the Shires, wilds of Scotland. She's just been doing that one after another after another. So I actually think that's quite impressive. So she knows lots about Britain now. Who wouldn't want to do that? So please welcome to our virtual stage, Kate Farrell.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. And this is what I'm giving away. It's my book that came out this year, Story Power, Secrets to Creating, Crafting, and Telling Memorable Stories. What's great about this book is that I have tips in the book, but there are also tips from 21 other storytellers with their own ideas of how to prepare. And that includes Claire Hennessy, who has tips in here. They're excellent. And also Cheryl Bizet-Boutte, who was on our show, Sheila, Stories in Black and White. It's really rich, and you will get a copy digitally. So look forward to that. And, I'm one of those single people, JP. And I don't need a desk. I would like to have a larger apartment. Can you take care of that, do you think? Okay, so here's my story about the pandemic. Looking back at 2020, what dramatic moment stood out for me living here in the heart of San Francisco? Was it that Sunday afternoon, walking in my city neighborhood, hearing the dry lightning storm strike, thunder roaring high up in the clouds, starting wildfires of historic size? No, it wasn't that. Was it that morning in September, waking up to orange red skies? The city looking like a scene from Mars, dystopian, dim, red, twilight zone with darkness all day. No, it wasn't that. It was that rainy Friday afternoon when the mayor's office sent out the urgent alert and our cell phones buzzed and vibrated. You know, that January, I had just moved into this downtown neighborhood. My name had come up on a wait list for an affordable housing unit. That was like winning the lottery. I was so excited to move into a walking neighborhood, everything within 3-block radius. I sold my car and shrunk my carbon footprint. I could walk to the Mechanics Institute library, another living room, a literary salon with stimulating lectures and authors. I could walk to transportation hubs for bus, train, ferry, BART, airplane. I was all set. By February, I was giving workshops in storytelling at the public library and scheduled more, and at the Writers' Conference down Market Street. At night, from my studio window, I could look out and see all the luxury apartment buildings twinkling at night and watch the light show at the top of the Salesforce Tower. I did not hear the doomsday clock ticking. Mayor Breed was sending out emergency alerts about something like COVID-19 that sounded like a sci-fi movie. But on March the 6th, that Friday night, the emergency alerts became urgent. And older people, vulnerable people, were told to stay at home. And the order was effective at midnight. But I had already paid to go to a write-in at the prestigious Writers' Grotto only a few blocks away. And that would be before midnight. Why not? I needed help writing my memoir. I needed a special push. So I started out with rain in the forecast, feeling nervous and edgy, thinking to myself, if the orders are effective at midnight, that means the virus is already here. Where is it? Airborne? The misty night air seems suspicious. I turned a corner and strode up a dark side street until I came to face an ironclad building on 2nd. Iron railings 20 feet high covered open areas on the walls. There was an iron gate 10 feet high that was slightly ajar, opening up to a barren atrium. I walked into the Writers' Grotto, to its outer door. I buzzed myself in and followed the signs to the elevator and took it up to another floor that opened up to an inner door with signs that said, "Keep locked at all times." And there was a steel-plated lock. The door opened and the instructor greeted me. "You're the first one to arrive. Name?" And she checked her clipboard. Oh no. Great. Am I going to be the only one? I followed her down a narrow hallway to an inner conference room, an inner sanctum, to a huge conference table. Just the two of us. When I'm nervous, I get kind of chatty, and so I blurted out, you know, I saw the mayor's alert at 5 o'clock today, and I just moved a few blocks away, and I wanted to walk over and see if the write-in was still on. She grimaced. You moved down here? Don't all the restaurants close on the weekends? Well, some of them do, I agreed, but I was thinking that the pizza parlors and the taco stands were still open. Relegated as someone who'd moved to the wrong side of town, I silently waited for others to arrive. And they sat around the big table. As we introduced ourselves, their cell phones were out on the table in front of them. They buzzed, vibrated with alerts and text messages. The atmosphere was tense. We could have been at a seance. COVID was among us. Most did not come, yet we still took a tour around the empty workspaces and then to write. I returned to the conference table alone. Feeling that midnight was coming soon, I began to write in a heightened state with an adrenaline rush of flight and fight. I tackled the prologue to my memoir. It all came in a rush of words as I scribbled on my yellow legal pad. Thoughts crystallized and experiences in a way that I understood as I had never done before. Citywide panic was good for my muse. When the 2-hour session was over, I had written an encompassing and overriding life story to my satisfaction. When everyone returned, I realized how cold I was in that room, how I'd wound my neck scarf tight and huddled in my chair. Outside the writer's grotto, the city street slick and wet and a light rain falling, I said farewell to 2 young women, fearful and afraid, thinking and looking like we'd never see one another again. I pulled up the hood on my rain jacket, went back down the alley, gripping my plastic folder, creeping past the dark doorways. On a night of extreme alert, I smuggled my precious goods home. In the days and weeks that follow, all literary events in the city were canceled or postponed due to an abundance of caution. In my isolation, I began to work with an author, a very well-known author on my memoir online. But I will always be grateful to the Writer's Grotto for sharing their in-person, live, intense, creative space with me at the 11th hour on the night the lockdown began. Thank you.
Hey, woo!
Woo!
Yay! Well done.
Yay! Yay! Yay, thank you, Kate. Thank you for that story. Thank you. That was like a horror story and a literary story and a COVID story, kind of all rolled into one. Kate, thank you. I need a special push as well, by the way. So before I introduce our next storyteller, I want to talk a little bit about the guilty pleasures that are coming through on the YouTube chat. We've got, let's see, Rupa Mihan is the dried chili mango. I don't know if that's a Trader Joe's variety, but I love dried chili mango as well. And Alan DeBay, I like this one. This is women putting makeup on me for acting gigs. All right, that's good. And tonight, apparently, he was the Grinch. So that's his guilty pleasure. And we've got folks from Berkeley, Connecticut, Castro Valley. So keep the chat coming. We'd love to know that you're there. And great to know we've got that YouTube audience with us as well. So I'm going to bring up to talk about her guilty pleasure, a woman who has been on our show and who also hosts her own story shows based in Chicago. It's called Story Jam. And I love this because you tell a story and then she has a band that sings a song based on your story. And I so want to have a story written about, or a song written about one of my stories. So to talk about her guilty pleasure, we are going to bring up Steph Rogers of Story Jam. Steph, how are you?
Hey, hi. It's nice to see you guys. Thanks for inviting me.
You are very welcome.
Lovely stories.
What's the guilty pleasure happening for you in Chicago?
Well, it kind of goes way back, my guilty pleasure. It's a little bit embarrassing. It goes back to before the pandemic, in fact, when I would ask my husband if we could go drive around the nice neighborhoods at night and peek into people's homes, because fancy neighborhood people always like to keep their shades and windows open so you can see all of their stuff. I think they do that on purpose. So now here we are on Zoom, and that curiosity is just still there. And it's not like a judgy thing. It's more of a need to understand thing. And for example, I was looking at Julia's keyboard to see, like, what kind of keyboard does Julia have back there? Or who made that piece of artwork on Claire's wall behind her? And is her Christmas tree real? Or did she just get it from the basement from last year? And so please don't judge me, but I do like to take a little peek in Zoom meetings.
Okay, so Steph and her Zoom voyeurism, where she likes to just put herself in other people's living room. All right, and it's creepier that you did that before the pandemic, actually, than it is during the pandemic. I think we've all had Zoom judgment where we look at somebody's background and think, well, I'm happy to bring to the stage our next storyteller. Corey Rosen he was the MC of our very first show, and that was on March 29th, same show that JP was on. And he's also told stories on our April 5th show, which was about giving his son a broken Star Wars toy for Christmas, and our Story Slam with the theme of blame on September 13th, where he celebrated a Jewish Christmas. He is an improv extraordinaire, storyteller extraordinaire, and he actually has a book that is coming out. It can be pre-ordered on his website, which is storyrosen.com, which I think is like a best website name, Corey. I've never I love that. Storyrosen.com. It sounds like if you change your name to that, it'd be like you're in a Western or something. It'd be like, Story Rosen. But it's called Your Story Well Told. You can pre-order it at storyrosen.com. And Corey's guilty pleasure is that he hasn't cut his hair since this whole pandemic started. So Corey, we might have to have you back, and we'll have JP there, and he can show you how to cut your own hair. Yeah. And the last time that he cut his hair
like this,
was on his birthday, February 25th. So here in all his shaggy glory, please welcome Corey Rosen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great to be back. Yeah, this is one way I get to torture my children, is just by showing off all of the terrible things you can do. That's what's great about hair. I'm just lucky. I feel that I still have my hair. So it's one of those things of, I can't believe I've never gone through the exercise of seeing what would happen if it grew out. And it turns out it's curly. I never actually would have guessed that. I think I just didn't know. Well, I'm happy to be back. I think my other guilty pleasure has got to just be this, like this community and the fact that, I mean, I love storytelling. I love storytelling in person. I love the getting together with rooms full of people, but it really is this remarkable thing that we've been able to find each other, that these communities in Chicago and New York and wherever, like all together, we can actually hear each other's stories, share this connection together has been kind of awesome. And I would rather be in person, but since we're not, I'm super happy to be here. On to my my gift. So I am part of, and another storyteller in our show coming up soon, Tim Ereneta, and I met at a place called Bats Improv, a truly amazing organization in San Francisco, improvisational theater company. Like so many arts organizations, it's tough. It's tough to get through this. So somebody had this great idea to do a fundraiser that we're calling 10 for 20, which is that 10 people give each person $20 to do a thing 10 times. So some people are like, gonna walk around Dolores Park in San Francisco 10 times, you know, got 10 sponsors, raised a few $100s. I decided I was going to write songs for 10 people that gave me $20. And so among my backers have been your hosts tonight, Claire Hennessy and Regina Stoops, both, and actually one of our audience members, Claire Castell, also, thank you so much for that. If you want to hear those, I don't know if I would call them compositions. They're compositions. I sometimes they're adaptations. Anyway, they're songs. They are on my Instagram, which is also Story Rosen. So if you go to @StoryRosen on Instagram, you will hear. And my most recent, some people are saying is the best one, Claire. It's the Claire anthem. Oh no, Regina is pointing at herself. Regina thinks the Regina song. Regina was highly specific about everything, the rhythm of the song, the genre of the song, the content. It was very good. So tonight I'm gonna, as my gift to somebody in the audience here, is gonna get a song on an instrument I've never played. I'm going to compose a song tonight for somebody here on this bad boy. It was my wife's grandfather's accordion. It's been sitting on a shelf as like an art piece. I was like, that's what it's going to be. So that's that. I've stalled long enough, haven't I? You ready for some stories? Okay. I think I've thought of one. Just kidding. There we go. Here we go. The rage was palpable in the house, all over my family's abode, as thing after thing on the list of canceled events hit us all. What about my Yosemite trip? Yeah, that's definitely canceled. What about the pool party? There's absolutely no way that we're going to have the pool party. What about just graduation? My 8th grade graduation? No, it's all going to be canceled. My son Henry was furious. This was the culmination of 9 years at the same school that he's gone to in San Francisco, his elementary school, his friends that he's grown up with this entire time. And as the co-president of his 8th grade class, he was looking forward to the end of this year, like you do when you are reaching these end moments and these glorious finale episodes of our lives. And it was just all crumbling in his eyes as he saw it all melting down. I felt for him. I wanted to do whatever I could to help him through this time, but also, of course, to keep him safe. And so I did what I do. I overcompensate. I take control. I say, I can do this. I can use my video editing knowledge and my Zoom prowess, which has been developing rapidly under using it all the time. And I will create an event like you've never seen before. It will take all of the fun, the exhilaration, the emotion, using montage and music and pre-recording speeches and putting them all together in a glorious feeling. This, of course, had no impact on him because all he could see was what he couldn't have, the things that he wasn't going to get the things that that were missing out, the things that were taken away from him. I go upstairs from spending all afternoon editing the montage. I see him slumped on the couch. Hey, bud, let's take a walk. I don't feel like doing anything. Let's go outside in nature. When I'm feeling upset, this is something I like to do. Let's just go outside and take a walk. No. Get off the couch now. I raised my voice. Get off the couch. Come downstairs. We're all going. This had an impact. I am not really a yeller, but I kind of went with the tack of shake it into him or wake him up. And I go downstairs where my wife and daughter are waiting in the car. What's happening? Jenny says. It's been a tough year on her too. It's March when all this is going down, and she is in the middle of her radiation treatments for her breast cancer, which she's already gotten through her chemotherapy and her surgery. And so everyone is on edge. Are we going on this walk or not? I go, yes, just wait for Henry. He'll come down. Where is he? Just wait for him. A minute later, clang! The gate slams shut as we see him come out, get into the car, and sit back in the back seat as we drive in silence from our neighborhood in Potrero Hill to Stanyon Street, right across the street from where Henry's preschool is, taking us all back in time to where this all began, where our children were young and innocent and playful and spent time together with us. It was a co-op, so we could all be together in happiness and in togetherness. We park the car and get out and walk to the foot of a trail, an urban hike in the middle of San Francisco at the foot of Sutro Tower. We walk up a short flight of stairs to a dirt path surrounded by giant eucalyptus trees. Wind is howling through the trees and hawks are circling up above. And even though just moments before we were in the car and screaming in our house, it feels like we're in another world as we're walking on a winding dirt path up the hill through Sutro Forest, making our way up to the top of the hill. Henry is in silence as he's trudging several steps, steps ahead of us. Other hikers and walkers pass by us, and everyone being extra careful with each other like we are now, turning our backs as we walked past and making sure that our masks were fitting over our faces as we took precautions for both our own safety and each other's. When we reach the apex of this hike, of this climb, Henry turns to me as if he's been deep in thought for this entire journey. And he says, "Hey, Dad, you know how on Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry David talks about golf all the time, but you never see him play it?" Yeah, I never thought about it like that. The ice has been broken, and on the walk back down the path through the same trees with the same wind, the feeling is different. The world is the same, but the connection between my son and I has somehow transformed. And when we make it out of this forest and back into the car and we get back home, I return to my chore, editing his graduation video, and he returns to the couch, noticeably lightened by this experience. I finished the video. It was fucking awesome. I mean, as graduations go, I swear to God, I wish that this was my graduation. It had everything I would dream in a graduation video, if it has to be that way. And it's preserved perfectly for all time. He didn't quite appreciate how amazing job I did, because truly, that's not what my son needed. My son didn't need the awesome video that I think I needed to make for him to get through this. His celebration was as simple as a walk in the woods with his dad. Thank you.
Wonderful. Beautifully done. Very nice.
Woo! Excellent. Thank you, Corey, the wild man of Borneo. so fabulous. I love that story. So just a couple of things. My tree is real. I just want to say we dragged it through the house yesterday, just for Steph. And look, it's got a red telephone box on it, which I do own, my own personal one, and it's even got a Dalek. So if you're British, you know that. Someone will appreciate that. Also, my picture, my best friend from school, well, from college, she does art. She pours it. She sort of lost the use of her wrist, and so she pours paint, and she's absolutely bloody marvelous. If you want to go, Monique Oliver Art. She does loads of them. It's bloody fantastic. Go and do that. A couple of guilty pleasures from our Zoom audience now. Claire Castell, who was our hero from our last show last week, a couple of weeks ago. Her guilty pleasure is Tate's cookies. I don't know what they are, but apparently they're lovely. And then Kristen Pedemonte, her guilty pleasure was, for the first 2 months of lockdown, was binge watching Glee. See, we're all out the television, but she was also very sensibly decimating her friend David's wine cellar. I fortunately didn't have that option. So excellent. So our next storyteller is Tim Ereneta. Now, I first met Tim a couple of years ago at a storytelling festival in Fremont in California. And we met and had a chat, had a glass of wine, I think. He came and saw my show, which is really sweet of him, when I did a 20-minute show at the Marsh. And so we've been friends ever then. So we had to have him on our show. And he was on our first traditional story show. Now, Regina and I didn't know an awful lot about, well, not too much about traditional storytelling. And now well, particularly for me, I'm a massive fan. It was one of our favorite shows. It's really good. And that was on May the 24th. So if you like sitting down and having someone tell you really lovely story, go and watch that. Tim's guilty pleasure was perfecting his sourdough baking, which sounds like that would only be his, you know, his friend's guilty pleasure, unless he's eating the whole thing in one go. So he was just obviously a bit of a doughboy. So that's Tim's guilty pleasure, which seems very tame in compared to the rest of us. Maybe he's not telling us all that he should be telling us. Maybe he'll tell us now. So please welcome to our virtual stage, Tim Ereneta. Tim, you need to unmute. Isn't that going to be the whole thing of the pandemic? Unmute.
Oh, pantomime is my other skill, and ventriloquism. So Simon was going to dub my whole story, but okay, that we broke that now. One of the things I am doing tonight right here live on this event is confessing that I have a second life as a visual artist. I'm a visual thinker, and that's why I went into storytelling, actually, as performing art. And so what I'm going to give away is a piece of artwork. During the pandemic, I've had a lot of time when I want to get away from a screen. I go down to my basement and I dig through my scraps of art papers and art supplies that I've collected over the past 30 years. And I build abstract collages. And I have never studied abstract art, but I discovered that, like some people like doing 500-piece puzzles, I enjoy making up my own compositions, but not having anything to refer to. Like, I have no idea what I'm building. So I will put these pieces together and work on them until they're done. And sometimes it takes half an hour, and sometimes it takes 3 months, or sometimes it takes a year. The canvas I work on is only 2.5 by 3.5 inches. There's a size of playing cards, because at this size, I can avoid imposter syndrome, and I can also give these away freely, and they are designed to be given away. And so tonight, at the end of the evening, I will be giving away this piece of original art, this collage, to some lucky person. Once upon a time, there was a man who learned how to read. And in this time and in this place, that was unusual. And so the other people of his village came to him for advice, and to the best that he could, he gave it to them. But he was no better a farmer than any of them. So instead, people came to him to ask him to interpret their dreams. He had no expertise in the images that come to us when we're asleep, but he wanted to be helpful. So he told people what he thought about their dreams. And soon he became known in his village as the dream diviner. Now it so happened, in the same time, in the same place, but at the other end of the country, in the king's palace, the king had a dream. He went to his advisors and asked them to explain it, but they could not. One of them said, "Your Excellency, there is a man in the far north of our country who has some renown for divining dreams. We must summon him." And so the king did. And the man back in the peasant village set off with a troubled heart. He had no trouble dispensing advice to the other peasants in his village. But suppose the king didn't like what he had to say. And what kind of advice could he give a king? With this heavy heart, he walked on and on. It was several days' journey to the palace. And when the path came to a mountain pass, there, blocking the road, sunning itself, was an enormous snake. The snake stuck out its tongue, detecting a change in the scents in the air, lifted its head, turned and stared at the man. "Greetings, traveler. Where are you going?" "I've been summoned by the king to interpret his dream. I don't know what I'm going to tell him." "I know what the king has dreamed," said the snake. "And I know what it means. Would you like me to tell you?" "Yes, if you'd be willing to help me." "What can you offer me?" I have nothing, but I will give you half of whatever the king rewards me with." "Very well. Bend down closer. Let me whisper the secret in your ear." The man bent down, put his ear up to the snake's lips, and the snake told him. When the man got to the palace, he said, "Your Excellency, you have had a dream, and let me explain it to you. I know that you have dreamed that it was raining for 7 days and 7 nights. But instead of raindrops falling from the sky were the tails of foxes. These foxtails fell for 7 days and 7 nights until the earth was covered with them." "Yes," said the king, "this is exactly what I have dreamed. What does it mean?" "It means, Your Majesty, that for the next 7 years, this will be a time when your kingdom is like a den of foxes, of cunning and treachery and deceit, and people will lie and cheat." The king said, "This is well spoken." And he gave the dream diviner 2 bags of gold. And the dream diviner went away from there a very happy man, carrying those 2 bags of gold, imagining all the ways he could spend that money. And on his way back, he began to think, "Now, I could spend this so many ways, but I did promise half of this to the snake. But what can a creature who crawls about on its belly all day, what could it possibly spend money on? What would it do with gold?" And the dream diviner decided that he would avoid the mountain pass. He took a new route home, going all the way around the mountain. It delayed him by several weeks, but now that he was a rich man, he did not care. Back in his village, he was even more respected now that he had wealth. And time went by. And the king had another dream. And the king summoned the dream diviner. And the dream diviner set off to that same road, through that same mountain pass. Because really, what were the chances that that same snake would be there at the same place, waiting for the traveler. "Greetings, traveler. Where are you going?" "The king has summoned me once again. I don't know what I'm going to tell him. I can't read dreams." "Would you like my assistance?" said the snake. "Yes, I'm sorry I didn't come by last time, but this time I can offer you half of what the king will reward me. I promise." "Very well, let me tell you." And the dream diviner knelt down, put his head next to the snake's lips, and the snake told him. At the palace, "Your Excellency, you have had a dream, a new dream, where it was raining for 7 days and 7 nights, but it was not raindrops. It was not fox's tail. It was raining swords until the earth was covered with swords." "This is exactly what I have dreamed. What is the meaning of my dream?" "Your Majesty, your kingdom will enter a period of bloodshed and anger. People will resort to violence." "This is troubling," said the king, "but it is well spoken." And he gave the dream diviner 4 bags of gold. Well, the dream diviner was perfectly happy with all this wealth. And as he walked back to his village, he imagined all the ways he would spend it. And soon he came to that mountain pass, and there was a snake sunning itself. And the snake said, "Do you have something for me?" "Indeed I do," said the dream diviner. And he put down the 4 sacks of gold. And he drew out his sword and he charged the snake. And he brought that down where he thought the snake's head should be. But for all its size, that snake was quick. And like lightning in a flash, it was gone. The sword only nicked the edge of its tail, not even a drop of blood on it. But the dream diviner was satisfied that he had chased the snake away, and he picked up those 4 sacks of gold and returned home. A very wealthy man. And he got to marry the daughter of the chief of that village. He began to raise a family. Time went on. And the king had another dream. He summoned the dream diviner, and the dream diviner set off once again, this time nervous. And when he got to the mountain pass, he said, my friend, have mercy on me. I need your assistance one more time. And I recognize that I struck out at you last time, but I swear this time I will give you half, and I will give you all of the king's reward if you will tell me the meaning of his new dream. And the snake agreed. When the dream diviner got to the palace, he said, "Your Excellency, you have had a new dream in which you have dreamed that for 7 days and 7 nights, it had rained shepherds' crooks. Their staffs fell from heaven and covered the earth until people were up to their chests in the sticks and staffs of the shepherds. This is indeed what I have dreamed. Tell me its meaning. Your Majesty, for the next 7 years, your kingdom will be like a shepherd tending its flock. People will look out for one another and treat each other with compassion." This is well spoken. And he gave the dream diviner 6 sacks of gold. When the man reached the mountain pass, there was the snake, and he placed 6 sacks of gold down in front of the snake. "My friend, everything I have is due to your skill, not mine. Take all of this, and when I return home, I will gather up more and send it back to you." But the snake, looking at the 6 sacks of gold, turned its eyes to the dream diviner and said, "No, I refuse your paltry offer of this gold. The first time I helped you was when the kingdom was like a den of foxes and full of treachery and deceit, and at that time you avoided me and would not share what you had promised. The second time I helped you was when the kingdom was like a den of murderers with swords, and at that time, for my pains, you struck at me with your weapon. And now that we are in a time where the kingdom is like a shepherd taking care of its flock, you come to me with generosity? No. When the wind blows, you scatter like a leaf. You bend like a reed. You have no substance. You have nothing of value that I want. I, who am the oldest and of old and wisest of wise, there is nothing I will take from you." And with that, the snake slithered off. The dream diviner looked at the sacks of gold, and he hefted them back up and carried them back to his village. But for the rest of his days, he felt the heavy burden of the snake's words. The Dream Diviner and the Snake, a tale from Iraq. Thank you.
Wow. Very interesting.
Such a good story, Tim.
Whoa.
Good story.
Hey,
Lovely.
great story. Great story, Tim. Oh, that was great. I enjoyed that. I love when you do the snake. It's very suspenseful. I kind of want to see that guy get it at the end, though. Kind of wanted to see him. Anybody else want to see the snake like come back? Yeah, right.
Fight him, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Right? We all want redemption or revenge, apparently. I don't know. Human nature. There's a guilty pleasure that came through. Linda Brown from Black Storytellers of San Diego. I think I have that right, Linda. And she likes sleeping under a quilt that it took her 2 months to make. So that to me is hard work, followed by a guilty pleasure. That's just a reward for hard work, Linda. Our next storyteller is Brandon Spars, and he told a story on a show where we had our Bill Up special on April 26th. And this was a hilarious story about meeting his wife for the first time in Indonesia. And his guilty pleasure, Brandon is a teacher, and his guilty pleasure is that he sleeps in until like 5 minutes before he's supposed to be teaching on Zoom. And then I imagine him, he just leaps out of bed and doesn't even like comb his hair. Apparently he brushes his teeth, but he just like rushes up to the computer and starts teaching. And he goes all day without really any personal hygiene other than, I guess, his teeth brushing. So, and I'm not sure Brandon's alone in that at all, but that is his guilty pleasure, is getting to sleep in until 5 minutes before class starts. So Brandon, with clean teeth, you look like you're cleaned up a little bit tonight. We appreciate that. Please give a warm welcome to Brandon Spars.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. And I did take a shower today. I will say that. The first time in a while. And my giveaway, I'm very proud to say, is a book I did with my daughter. And this is on a goddess from my wife's island of Bali. Her name is Rangda, and there are many myths and legends about her. And so I've collected them all here. And maybe the reason you would want this book is for the illustrations, which have been done by my daughter. And that's why I will get your address, whoever you are that wins this, and I'm going to send you a hard copy of this so that you can appreciate the drawings that my daughter did that go with it. And there's about a dozen of them in there. So I'm very pleased to be able to give this away. So, yes, I'm a teacher during the time of COVID. I Zoom all day. I have students that I've never even seen because their cameras don't work or their Wi-Fi is unstable. But in the midst of all of this, there is one thing that I'm glad about, and it's the fact that I don't have to lead high school students on international trips. I've been doing that for 18 years. And it seems like every time I lead a group of teenagers to whatever country, I get into some kind of sticky situation. It really is a recipe for sticky situations. And I end up having to explain myself to the head of school more often than not. And here is an example of that. This is pretty early on in my teaching career. And 3 weeks before the trip happened, I was asked to lead 10 teenagers to China. I'd never been there. I don't speak Chinese. The director assured me it would be a great trip. In fact, he planned to start the trip off a 4-hour adventure for us, where right after we got off the plane, before we met our host, before we met any tour guides, we would have our own experience immersed in the city of Beijing. We would navigate our own way using rudimentary Chinese we had learned to a very special place. We would find a beautiful green pond. We would cross it in boats. We would walk through an ancient garden and enter a centuries-old traditional tea house where we would sit, and then a woman in the garb of the Tang Dynasty would emerge with a teapot that had a spout that was 4 feet long. And this was so while she was dancing, She could pour cups of tea. And of course, our imaginations went wild and began to embellish this. And we were picturing her shooting laser beams of tea from 12 feet away. Well, whatever the case, our director assured us this was going to be one of the highlights of our trip to China. And so there we were in the traditional neighborhood of Beijing, the Hutang. And I could see circling us all these rickshaw drivers. Now, I had been told about them. They were for tourists. They would take us to tourist destinations and they would overcharge us. And of course, we were not tourists. We were students of Chinese culture. But after an hour and a half, it became undeniable. We were hopelessly lost. And one of the students looked at me and said, "Brandon, do you think we're going to miss the long tea pour?" A little tear rolled down his cheek. That was when my colleague, another teacher, leaned in and said, "Why don't we just let the rickshaw drivers take us there?" And so I summoned one of them and they all came over. And I pushed away their plastic menus with tourist destinations and prices and told them, no, 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 we are not tourists. We want to go to the Imperial Tea Garden. And I explained about the beautiful green water, the ancient garden, the traditional tea house. Tea, one of the drivers fixated on that. And I said, no, not just regular tea. It's tea served by a dancing lady from far away. And this might be the cause of everything when I tried to explain it in Chinese. Cha henda! And I made the motion like this to imitate the spout of tea shooting several feet. Cha henda! Okay, 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 the driver said. I wasn't sure he understood me though. He didn't. He took us to a tourist tea house. No, 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 I said. The traditional tea house does not have plastic chairs or plastic tables or paper cups with tea bags and peanuts. The traditional tea house has a dancing lady who shoots tea 4 or 5 feet. Sha henda. That, I said, was a short tea pour. Cha hen shao. And the driver agreed. Hen shao. Well, to be fair, I was asking them to do something impossible. This traditional tea house was based on our director's experience from 20 years earlier. Never been very widely known. The business had closed. The building had been demolished. The beautiful green lake had been filled in. We were asking these rickshaw drivers to take us to a place that didn't exist. And to their credit, they were really trying to produce for us. There they were in a huddle. And finally they came and they said, okay, okay, okay. And I said, long tea pour, cha hen jiao. And they said, yes, 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 yes. And we loaded up and we made a silent train right out of the traditional neighborhood. My resolve as a leader was affirmed when I saw this body of water, but this one was enormous and I couldn't even see the other side. And wind was whipping up choppy waves and blowing black foam on menacing boulders that lined the shore. We coasted down into a dingy warehouse area and stopped in front of a dark building with a wooden staircase. Imperial Tea House? Cha Henjiao, I said. The driver closed his eyes and gestured toward the entrance of the building. Well, inside was a network of hallways with doors, and strangely enough, Chinese pop music seemed to be coming from the doors. I imagine we walked through the hallway to some kind of garden in the back. But at the end of the hallway, one of the doors was open, and I stopped. Cigarette smoke was pouring from within. I heard men's voices. I heard laughter from a woman. And that was when I saw the entire side of a bare woman's leg, We were in some kind of brothel. We were in some kind of Chinese karaoke brothel. Why are we stopped? It was my colleague shouting over the worried eyes of our students. 2 women had taken each of his arms and more women were filling in from behind us. Just keep moving, he shouted. And so I charged forward and made a left turn and a right turn. I went through an open door, which turned out to be a kitchen, where 2 off-duty girls were squatting on the floor eating instant noodles. And when we entered, they shot to their feet in time to see all 12 of us parade through with the on-duty girls in tow. On the other side, I saw the exit. And I would have made it had not a most formidable woman stepped in front of me. She was about 4 feet tall, but her beehive hairdo made her taller than me. Her lipstick was smeared to one side. I think she'd been interrupted from entertaining some kind of illustrious guest. What she was wearing was amazing. It was a piece of red carpet about 6 inches wide, pasted to her breasts, thrown around her back, around her hip, and fixed to her skin just below her navel, so that it hung over her bare loins, her entire backside bare. 2 other women joined her, holding plastic menus. In the field of Mandarin characters, I made out the English words, bringing real to fantasy. What is it that you want? She asked very clearly in English. I mournfully began a preface to what was becoming a very familiar speech. I'm sorry, I said. We're looking for the traditional tea house. And I described the beautiful green water, the ancient garden, the tea house. Her eyes widened. You are here to find tea? She asked. And before I could protest, she clapped her hands and issued a command, and 2 women arrived, one with a pot of tea and one holding several cups. No, 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 I said. That's not the traditional tea we're looking for. And of course, I explained, we're looking for the long tea pour, the imperial dancing lady. Cha Henda, I said. And that prompted one of the strangest events ever lost in translation to which I've been witness. At a signal from the formidable women, the 2 women moved apart, and the one holding the teapot began to swing her arms and count. E, Her co-workers came to join in to cheer them on. Son, Su. And when she arrived at number 4, she released the contents of the teapot all over the other girl, whereupon they both turned and clapped their hands to promote the aura of excitement over fulfilling my fantasy. I was speechless. Those poor girls, scalded and smiling through their running makeup. My colleague shouted from behind, can you get around, whatever that is? He had no idea from the back what sort of spectacle to which me and the students in the front had just been witness. Let's just get out of here, he shouted. And so I took the hand of the student behind me and I dodged around this. And I would have made it out had not a very large man barred my exit. The formidable woman reinserted herself. Now, she said, you must pay. And I said, pay? Pay for what? With a fingernail the same color as her red carpeting. She tapped on the menu, making fantasy too real. And then she used the name for the fantasy that would remain just that, a fantasy. You must pay for long tea pour. I took out my wallet. And of course, I had given all the Chinese cash to the rickshaw drivers. And so, in case there was any chance I was going to get out of this without having to explain how on earth I ended up in a brothel with 10 of our students, with a great deal of reluctance, I handed this formidable madam of this brothel the school credit card. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah. What an ending.
absolutely brilliant.
Wonderful.
Oh. Oh, Brandon, that is so funny. Oh, I love your stories, but that is one of the best. Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. Oh, God.
Oh my God, that was funny. I'm crying. That was just hysterical. Oh.
Before we go much further, there's a couple of more guilty pleasures, I want to say. Neshama Franklin, who's in our audience, who is, again, one of our super fans. She said that her whole life has been a guilty pleasure. Isn't that just lovely? That made me feel warm the cockles of your heart. And then Mr. Tech Guru, who some of you know, some of you don't. He's a bit unseen. His guilty pleasure, although it's not really very guilty, he likes to lock all the doors and lock down. He just stomps around the house completely naked. So that's what the Tech Guru does. So when we're not doing this, he's walking around naked.
And right. This is the same Tech Guru that you married, right, Claire? Just to clarify.
Yes, this is the Tech Guru that I married. Yes, it's a bit scary because I don't like taking clothes off, in public ever. I've got a few stories on that one, but we won't talk about that now. So I think what we're going to do now, with no further ado, is we're going to give away some prizes. So now this is not as exciting as some others, but we've got swag. Now, along with the mug and the notebook is going to be free tickets to our next show in January, which is going to be a really good one. So we'll let you know about that. Regina, why don't we start with the notebook? So the notebook and free tickets, who's going to have that?
All right, well, let me draw from the prize present. All right, here we go. This is for the notebook and the ticket. It is Kathy Catano. Yay! Kathy Catano.
Okay, so we'll get that winging your way to you. And now we've got a collector's item. Let me tell you, we've only got 2 more of these left. This is one of them. So right. Our 6 feet apart mug plus tickets to our next show. All right, the mug, and this is going to Jean. It's like Ellison. Jean. Yay! Hey, Jean. Now Jean was on our show, and she told us a brilliant story about a horse that bit her. So you want to go and have a look at that. That's paired storytelling. And we'll need addresses. We'll figure that out. But congratulations. Congratulations. And now Julia Mark, who we love to death, who came on and sung our show. We'd like to bring her back if she's around. And we're going to give away her album. So, and if she's not, we'll give it away anyway. Yeah. Oh, here she comes. So here she is. She's back. She's back. She's obviously just was running around naked.
I was getting a piece of pie.
And there's the album. So Regina, do you want to do another one? I'd be happy to. Okay. The album from Julia Mark goes to dun, 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 dun. Kathleen Mucklin. Kathleen, you're the prize. Awesome. Okay.
That's my Aunt Kathy.
Woo! Yay! Right on. Sorry, Claire, I'm writing this down because I was supposed to write this down. You were. Stall for time. Okay, so after this, we're going to now go and we're going to bring back Sheila Arnold, who's our first storyteller tonight. There's Sheila. Sheila, do you want to hold up what you're going to be giving away? Lovely. Okay, and then I'm going to draw from the hat now. So Regina, pass this to me. So yeah, let me just pass this over to you, Claire. Yeah, and I just picked it up. Thank you. And Rocky Ross.
Woohoo! Rocky.
Hey, Sheila, thank you. Woo.
All right, perfect. Now I'm going to pass the hat back to Regina. Thank you. Magically turns into the present. And we're going to bring in, who's our next storyteller? Simon. Simon. Simon's still with us too, which is good. He's not got lost in the storm.
I have not, although the lights have been flickering.
All right, Simon, remind us, they're going to get a CD, yes, with lots of good art, lovely artwork. Okay, and I am going to draw the lucky winner of Simon's CD. And the lucky winner is Melinda. Melinda. Woo! Melinda Jen, again. Thank you. Melinda gets the Simon.
Thank you. Great. I love it.
All right, I'm going to hand this back, I believe, Claire, to you.
Want it signed?
Lovely. We're going to bring back JP now.
Ooh.
JP Frary with all those lovely things. Let's find out who's going to have his. It's going to be Margot Miles. Woo! Oh, how fantastic is that? You get to choose one of those lovely things. And we all hate you because we all wanted that prize.
Give Margot my info and she can.
What we'll do is I'll email everybody probably tomorrow because it's late
Perfect.
night. I might have wine, so tomorrow I'll email all these things. So don't worry, we'll put you all in contact. So don't worry.
Perfect.
And I'm going to hand the hat back to Regina, who isn't paying attention. Oh, she is. Well done.
I am. I'm paying close attention, and I believe next up is Kate's digital book, if I'm correct. Yep. Okay, there it is. And who gets the book for telling stories? It is Karen Wentz. Karen. Woo! Karen snuck in over the wire. She was the last ticket bought today. So congratulations, Karen.
Great.
All right. And I'm going to pass this on back to Claire.
Thank you. Got the hat. And now we're going to bring back Tim Ereneta. Where are you, Tim? Are you back there? Now you're going to give this very gorgeous piece of art.
Yes, one of a kind.
One of a kind.
Signed.
And it's going to go to Susan. Oh, it had to be the name that I can't pronounce. Champagnia, I think that's it.
Oh, Susie, yeah, great.
Woo, Susie.
Susie, lovely.
Yes.
I'm going to pass the hat back to Regina.
Well, and I'm going to pass it back. I think, Claire, you were going to draw because we're up to Corey, Rosen.
No, we've got Brandon now.
Oh, Brandon, how could I forget? All right, well, I'll take the hat then. Bring it on.
Okay, there you are. There's the hat.
All right, thank you. Got it. Brandon's book with the drawings done by his daughter. Ooh, exactly. All right, and that is going to be Jennifer Baker. Jennifer, you will get the book, the prize book from Brandon's Bars.
I'll sign it, Jennifer.
Oh, that would be lovely. All right, and I'm going to pass this back to you, Claire.
Thank you. Lovely. And now we've got Corey Rosen. We're bringing him on last, the wild man of Borneo, because he's going to sing a song for you. So who's it going to be? It's going to be Sarah Armstrong.
Yeah.
Sarah.
Okay.
Excellent.
Wow, thank
So
you.
what we're going to do is bring Sarah onto the screen. And because Corey will need to ask her a few questions.
Yes.
So in a second, we're going to bring you on, Sarah.
Okay.
And Corey.
Yes.
Do you want to ask her some questions?
Yeah. Sarah, tell us about you. Tell us about yourself. Where do you live? What are your likes and dislikes? Anything that we would want to know about you in, say, 30 seconds or less.
I live in Berkeley, California.
Berkeley, great.
I'm a storyteller. Love all the being able to hear stories from around the world these days. Just love Regina and Claire and everybody who's been here.
Tell me about someone from your childhood. Maybe did you have a impactful teacher or mentor?
Let me think about that. I think my second grade teacher was very special, Mrs. Ostrom. Started me out on a good path for reading, which I love to do. Love books.
All right, I think I've got enough.
Okay, we're going to go back to Regina.
You do your thing.
Yeah. So just to recap here. First of all, this is an end of year show. We're so happy that you're here. And if you haven't yet, go to our website, sfapshows.com, and you can subscribe so you'll get random mailings from us. We're not that organized. You'll be lucky if you get one a month, but at least we'll allow you to know what shows are coming up. We do have one in January, and then we'll get back to 2 a month when we get to February. So I'd love to have you do that. Follow us on Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. And just to recap, Corey's going to do a song for Sarah Armstrong, who is one of our top fans, I have to say. Sarah's always here. We love to see you, Sarah. She was born in Berkeley. She's a storyteller. She loves the international aspect of all this storytelling. Mrs. Ostrom was one of her mentors in, I was her second grade teacher, I believe. And Corey, are we ready to go?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You
Okay,
ready?
Corey. Yeah, the professional
All right.
improv man.
Sarah Armstrong. Wait, hold on. Sarah Armstrong, you live in a place that is not very long journey from me. It's called Berkeley. You're no dum-dum. Thanks to Mrs. Ostrom. You don't like tweeting, you like reading. You don't like tweeting, you like reading. And you like stories from a guy named Corey. That's my song for Sarah Armstrong. Thank you.
Oh, oh my gosh, Corey.
Thank you. That was
Thank you.
unbelievable. Thank you.
Oh, and you know, if you, again, that 10 for 10, go to Story Rosen on his Instagram. You'll find the other ones that he's done. Get in touch with him if you want to have a song written about you, or I'm sure he will do one for anyone that you like or dislike.
Time is running out for that offer, so it's in the bio of my Instagram, Story Rosen. It'll have a bio for the link of how to get your own glorious composition for just for you.
That, Corey. I mean, you know, and I can see that you're going to go far with that instrument. Hopefully, far, far away. Anyway, thank you to everybody. Thank you to Sheila. Thank you to Tim. Thank you to Simon. Thank you to Kate, JP, Brandon, and Corey. We just love you all. Thank you so much. Hopefully you'll all come back on our shows next year. Thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you to our tech guru. Without him, we wouldn't be able to do this at all. We love you, even when you're naked. And thank you, Regina. And we'll have a lovely holidays. And we'll see you next year.
All right. Goodbye. Happy New Year. End of 2020. Better things for 2021, everyone.
Yeah, let's hope so. Bye. Everybody can stay on the call if they want to, because we're going to have a little bit of an after.
6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you. 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical. So step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.